Thank you for tuning into this week's edition of Destiny Weekly Recap, where we're going to go over everything that's happened that is of importance within the last week of Destiny. Weeks in Destiny start on Tuesday, they end on the following Tuesday, so we're going to cover everything that's happened since this previous Tuesday. It is currently July the 13th as of the time of recording this, so we're going to be going over the week of July 7th in this recap episode. This is meant to be a catch-up series for those of you who haven't played the game as much as you'd like to, or maybe you don't play the game at all and you just want to kind of keep in touch with, what's going on in the world of Destiny. Maybe you thought about picking up and playing it. This is just kind of a recap of what's happened within the last 6 to 7 days in the game. This is recorded live at twitch.tv/Vexler, so be sure to go over to the Twitch channel to check me out there, and you can actually take part in some of these recordings whenever they start hitting the feeds on YouTube. It usually means I'm live or I've just gone off the stream, so definitely check it out there. But like I said, this is going to be for the week of July the 7th. A day before reset today. Tomorrow is Tuesday, so tomorrow is going to be when the reset happens. This week in Destiny, we've got a few things going on that are pretty exciting. We've got the Moments of Triumph event, which started on the 7th of July, and it's going to be running all the way until September 22nd, which is when the Beyond Light expansion will hit. So you have from July 7th to I think it's the 22nd of September before the event ends to get all the Moments of Triumphs, and we'll kind of break down what that means here in a few seconds. So Moments of Triumph, for those of you who are not aware, or in case you need a refresher, it's basically an event where Bungie adds some incentive to go in some of the older, lesser played content, breathe a little more life into it. It's similar to Age of Triumph if you play Destiny 1. However, the Age of Triumph was a little bit more of a culmination type event because it was the last thing that happened in Destiny. Destiny 2 has had a Moments of Triumph every year since it launched, and it's basically just going into some of the older activities you've not played, mainly the raids, and get some cool stuff from them. This Moments of Triumph in 2020 has a 2020 title, or the MMXX, which is Roman numerals for 2020. And basically that's a title that you can get and kind of wear over your head everywhere you go. You may have seen me before in game. I have the 2019 Moments of Triumph, so I have an MMIX, I think, over my name. For the 2019 and Roman numerals. This title will be available until September of this year. Whenever the expansion hits and Moments of Triumph has concluded, you will no longer be able to get this. So if you want this title, if you want this seal as they're called, make sure you get it before the 22nd of September, which is, I believe, when it goes away. As a brief overview of this year's Moments of Triumph, they're emphasizing the Year 1 and the Year 2 raids heavily. And the reason for that is all of these are leaving us in the fall, most of them. Most of them are going to be hitting the Destiny content vault in September, so a lot of what is the Moment of Triumphs of this year is focusing on is those old raids, which you're not going to be able to play after September for a pretty long amount of time, according to what Bungie's telling us. As far as they're aware, all of the armor and the weapons that are in these raids are going to be going away in September, so it's kind of a good incentive to get us to go back in there and kind of regrind some of those for those people who haven't gotten them. Now, one of the big incentive points for going back into these raids is obviously getting the full sets of gear for the collectors out there. And Bungie has actually raised the maximum power cap of the armor sets from these raids. So we believe that the armor from these raids was going to be sunset since they were in Year 1 and Year 2. Bungie has changed that. So all of the Leviathan raid layers, Scourge of the Past, and Crown of Sorrow, all of those raids armor sets are going to be infusible, and they will not be sunset until at least 2021 September. So you're going to get almost a full year's, you're going to get over a year's worth of infusible armor from that. So you're not going to have to worry about your armor for a whole year, unless you're min-maxing. You may have to change it up, but you're not going to have to worry about armor for a full year if you go grind some of the awesome sets that are available from those raids. So definitely go check those out if you haven't already. The weapons, on the other hand, the weapons are going to be sunset. You can still get them. They're pretty awesome. Some of them are pretty cool aesthetically, but they're going to be sunset this fall, so you will not be able to use them unless you're playing content where their maximum power cap is, viable. You won't be able to bring them into the new raids or anything like that. Yawn. All right, what else we got here? Another thing about the incentivization, so, we got some cool armor, we got some cool weapons to go get. The armor I'm going to be able to use for a long time. Bungie has removed the weekly lockout for raids. So typically, if you're a player who has 3 characters in Destiny, you can have a max of 3 characters. You can run the raid one time on each character per week, per 7-day period, and you get rewards from that raid that are at a higher light level. They're newer items. And then if you run it again, you may get drops, but they're not going to be powerful. They're not going to be different. So this Moments of Triumph from July until September, they've removed that. So you can farm the raid encounters as much as you want to. You can play it as much as you want to, an unlimited amount of time, week to week, day to day, and you're going to be able to get as much armor as weapons as you want. I have not done it yet, but I have heard that the dogs encounter from the original Leviathan raid is a ridiculous way to get some loot, because you can farm it over and over and over again. So apparently there's some pretty cool things going on in the Leviathan, as well as all the other raids. If you haven't got the Anarchy, if you have not gotten the Taraba, those are 2 raid exotics that are going to be, the raids that you get them in are going to be going away in September, and Bungie may make them harder to get. Bungie may make them easier to get. They did say we'd be able to get them, but they didn't tell us how. So if you're wanting pretty much an easy, unlimited farming chance to get those weapons, I would go get them now. The 1,000 Voices is not included in this. Last Wish is not being vaulted. It's going to still be here. So Last Wish and Garden of Salvation, you can only run once. Real rewards. So Moments of Triumph and a lot of the events that Bungie has, a lot of the seasonal events, they have their Bungie store, which is actual merchandise you can purchase, and it's heavily tied into what's going on in the game. They have revealed a Moments of Triumph t-shirt. I'm pretty sure they do this every year. And then they also have a ring, a raid ring that you can get if you complete one of the Triumphs in game, which is to actually beat all of the raids. You have to beat all the year 1 raids. I think all the way up into Crown of Sorrow. I don't think anything after Crown of Sorrow is included in that. Could be wrong. But you have to beat like 5 raids. And then if you beat all of those raids, you'll get an email getting a code and being like, hey, you can purchase the raid ring if you want. I might have to. It looks pretty cool. T-shirt a rock can get, a rock being a rock can get the t-shirt. So go get that if you want to. Rock. The Nightfall this week was another point of discussion. The Nightfalls are in an interesting spot. The 750 Nightfall, it's good that they make the Nightfall repeatable. And the Nightfall is probably one of the easiest sources of exotics outside of the unlimited, weekly rewards for the raids going on right now. But prior to this Moments of Triumph, the Nightfalls are an excellent source of exotics. Now, what was happening this week is, I don't recall the exact strike that it was at the beginning, but I know that the Master Knight fall was 1080, and 1080 is not a easy attainable power level for most people to get to, let alone play a piece of content at 1080. And people were going into the 1080 content and realizing that the enemies were 750. So you could farm the absolute crap out of that Nightfall, and you would absolutely roll over the enemies. The modifiers were still there, the champions were still there, but the enemies were hitting like a pea shooter and taking hit like a truck. So it was very easy to run through that. I did not get a chance to go in there when that content was like that. They changed it, I think, either a day or 2 after. They changed it to a different Nightfall and fixed it. But, if in case any of you weren't aware and you were in the Nightfall a few times this week, it may have been easier than it was supposed to be. New exotic. This week, the new exotic, the Ruinous Effigy, was released, and it's pretty cool. It's an exotic trace rifle. It's a special weapon, and it fires a void beam of light, similar to the Cold Heart or the Wave Splitter. The Wave Splitter is the other void trace rifle. It fires a trace beam, and whenever it kills an enemy, they drop an orb, and that orb, once you can pick it up, it has, I think, 30 shots. It starts with 30 shots, and you can swing it like a light attack with a sword. You can do a heavy attack, which will slam the ball into the ground, similar to the Rift game mode from Destiny 1, and it completely consumes the charge, but does a big amount of damage to anything standing underneath of you. And then probably the most usable portion or part of the little orbs that it drops is the block or the life steal, life drain attack, whatever you want to call it. It basically turns you into a walking Titan bubble that has lifesteal. So anytime you damage an enemy that's in this giant orb that you're carrying around with you, it heals you, and it does a pretty good chunk of damage. Once you hit 1 ammo, so as you're continually holding, and it actually blocks damage, like I said, it's a guard and a life drain. And as you're draining and holding it, the ammo goes from 30 to 1. Now, whenever it hits 1, you can keep holding that charge down and keep blocking those shots, but you're going to take damage. It's very reminiscent of the Touch of Malice from Destiny 1, where you could get to 1 shot, keep shooting it, would drain the life out of you. I have read that the lore between the Ruinous Effigy and the Touch of Malice is very similar. Like I said, I haven't looked into it, but I've heard that. So, there may be some connection there. But basically, you hold it on 1 charge as you're draining the life of everything next to you, and it constantly ticks damage. Now, the person in me who wants to exploit the game and use every advantage to get by that mechanic, tried to use a Bubble Titan as well as a Well of Radiance to kind of sit there forever and ever, because you can sit there forever and ever as long as you have health with that and keep draining. The damage increases at an exponential rate. So after a decent amount of time holding it, it's going to one-shot you, even if you have every buff in the game on you. But it's a pretty cool weapon. It's a pretty cool weapon that you can use. The allies can pick up the orb that you shoot. Whenever you get the catalyst for the weapon, any enemy that is damaged by somebody holding that bubble will actually take more damage from the regular gun just shooting the beam. So it's a really cool weapon, and I think you should go try to get it. It's a decently easy quest. It's got a few parts that are kind of tedious, but it's an easy quest to go and do, and it's free exotic. You know, it's a free exotic out there. I believe there's going to be one more exotic beyond this season. It's probably going to be tied to the Solstice of Heroes event, which I think starts in August, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll have to see whenever that launches. That's about all I've got for this week. Definitely longer than last week's episode just because it wasn't an intro episode. I may have forgotten a few things. I mean, this is kind of the high points of the week. Like I said, the TWAB wasn't really that impactful. It talked about, like I said, the moments of triumph, the purchase things you can get on there. It talked about the Ruinous Effigy, so not much in the TWAB this week or this week at Bungie. For those of you who don't know, it's their blog post where they talk about the game. But yeah, that's about all we've got for this week. Yeah, I mean, if you've got any questions about anything that happened in the game, feel free to leave a comment. Hit me up on Twitch, twitch.tv/Vexler, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you've got. If you want to play around one day on the game and do some raids or some nightfalls, I'm always the guy to ask to do a nightfall or a raid. I'd love to help you out if you're new to the game. I did recently just post another video talking about what's happening in September to Destiny. It's a pretty big video. I'm hoping some people watch it and get some viewership on that, because a lot of work went into that, and it's some really interesting stuff that people who play the game and have an interest in the game I think should be aware of. So definitely check out that video. Check me out on Twitch, and if there's nothing else to talk about, which I don't think there is, I'll see you guys next week for the next Destiny weekly recap. Bye, guys.